Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today's episode, we're going to talk about transcending your phone. It's very likely, unless you're on a desktop, that right now you're listening to me through your phone. This device that has evolved over a period of time and has completely changed our lives in such a dramatic way that we need to talk about it on a spiritual level, because when we read the great spiritual works, they did not encounter a phenomenon like our phone. These phones that we carry now are so amazing, coming from somebody who experienced a period of time in my life when you could only get phone service through a landline. Many a time when I was younger did I sit in my kitchen and talk on the phone. Maybe we had two phones in the house at one time, but it was always on a landline. There was no cell phones. I remember the first cell phone, big, gigantic phone that you could barely hold with one hand, that you could plug in through your lighter and it would charge up and you could make some phone calls. It was so exciting when we could actually make phone calls in our car, because we could never do that before. We could never make a phone call in our cars because nobody could do that. We had walkie-talkies and CBs, but it wasn't the same as a phone service. And I watched the technological transition in my lifetime from a period of time where nobody had cell phones to computers being so rudimentary that it could barely do anything, dots and dashes, to each one of us carrying around these incredible supercomputers that are designed to addict us, that are gathering together our awareness energy and maybe the ultimate spiritual lesson and tool as we go down this path. It has to be discussed. The phone is clearly a reality creator. It is creating realities all around us all the time in the ways that it works, in the ways that it engages you. It is on a deep scientific level. They are engaging specific chemical patterns within your brain. Go back and listen to my episode on the power of language. They're using the power of language and sigils, imagery, page by page, app by app, game by game, to create the absolute addiction. You have to have your phone. Now, I got my son, my youngest son, his first phone when he was about 12. It was because at the time I had lost him at the park once. And when I found him, I was like, I'm going to have a phone on him so I can always track where he's at. And that might have been a mistake, or maybe it's not, because I've watched my son adapt and change his life and live around having this phone. Yeah, we would restrict his phone. He's been through all of that. And they're encountering and growing up with completely different neurological patterning than I had when I grew up without a phone. It creates an absolute difference in consciousness when speaking from one generation to another, when they've experienced huge technological shifts. But if you sit back and just look at the history of our planet and the amazing shifts and changes that have happened from the phone, they've completely changed our lives. They've killed people. People have been laying in the bath and messaging when they get electrocuted at its most rudimentary level. Those were not deaths that were occurring long in the past. Rolling onto your charger while asleep. Somebody has died from that. And on a basic level, people listening to music while you sleep has actually, in one freak accident, caused an electric surge through their phone and melted their ears. And I refer you to my episode on pendulums as they're discussed in reality transurfing. Not a pendulum you swing, but the concept that there are energetic structures of consciousness that form, that take energy. They're called pendulums. They're related to our thoughts. Our thoughts are very powerful. And when a group is thinking in unison, they create these beings that are thoughts combine together, and in some cases can become egregores that are influencing with the way they manipulate information. There is governmental manipulation. There is secret intelligence operations going on all the times. You've encountered psyops just because you have a phone. If you've just had a phone, you've encountered crazy, unusual programs of manipulation that you're not even aware of. Amazing shifts in consciousness are being programmed through these phones. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you have to get rid of your phone, because we have to survive in this environment, and it requires us to have access to a phone for maps and can save our lives. We can call 911. Phones have saved a number of lives and have been incredibly helpful. Without that phone, they couldn't have called for an ambulance. I mean, the dramatic effect that it's leveled at our consciousness is now being compounded. It's being compounded by the use of artificial intelligence. We are constantly being experimented on. Every time your phone vibrates or beeps or has a notification, every single notice that you receive is all programmed perfectly. The place that it comes up, the sound that it makes, the font that it uses, the language that it uses. It creates this very underlying addiction. Now, I'm somebody that has gone through addiction. I was addicted to alcohol. I drank a lot of alcohol and was definitely addicted to it, and I had to recover, and it took me a long time. I tried a number of different techniques and programs, and addiction is pervasive. It is deep. And if you have found yourself addicted to something and then gotten over that addiction, oftentimes you'll find that you're addicted to other things, as I have found. I'm addicted to my phone. This is a teach learning, learn teaching. This is me trying to learn about how to overcome that and telling you what I've done and the efforts that I've made to control my phone instead of my phone controlling me. I think the first and most important thing is to develop a level of awareness of what's going on. But you need to know the research and studies and the discussions right now by scientists and doctors about the phone. There's incredibly, very, very powerful information from a number of research studies that indicates that it creates psychopathologies and incredible stress levels and depressions. In order for us to move to the new earth, we need to have a feeling of love vibrating in this planet. And these phones can create a feeling of fear and stress, even though we're not quite aware of it. It is so subtle and so powerful that for us to truly escape the matrix, we must escape from our phones, and we must retain the ability to use them so it can advance whatever reality that we want to move towards. It can allow us to be of service. In many cases, we can be of tremendous service by having access to our phone. It's a catch-22. We want to be able to use our phones, but at the same time, we don't want our phones to use us. I am particularly chronically online because I have a YouTube channel, and I am on Hive and Spoutable. I'm on Mastodon. You can find me on Tumblr. I've posted every day for years on Tumblr. I'm on MeWe. People contact me on MeWe all the time. I'm on Reddit. I'm getting notifications from Reddit and Threads and Instagram, always on those all the time, and people are messaging me. And I reached a point at one part of my journey where I simply could not respond to everybody. And I would announce in the group that I love you so much, but I oftentimes miss your messages. Maybe you're messaging me on LinkedIn or some other service. And when I find it, sometimes I find people in dire need, and I could have helped them. And it was authentic, even though my box is full of just junk mail in many cases. I have to go through so much. And so I realized if I'm going to truly have control of my time and awareness, that I could not respond to all of my email or messages. I do my best to respond to some, and I'm biased towards some social media sites simply because I'm using them more often. And oftentimes it's by accident. I let the universe guide me in the limited time that I can respond to messages, as to who needs to be responded to most. And I found that to be effective, but it can be overwhelming. I'm on Atlantis World, and any new social media network I want to be a part of because I want to share the reality revolution. And you never know how one social media can die out and one can go big. And there's so many that I'm not on. There's so many different components, so many different programs and levels of architecture within this whole network of the internet and your phone. So many different companies involved, so much money is being made. And so we want to become aware of how we can control this powerful dynamic and the way we relate to our phone and transcend our phone addiction. Because I promise you, I would say most of us are addicted to our phones, and they're on some level of addiction with it because of the nature of our society. It's very much like somebody that is addicted to eating. You have to eat to survive, so you can't stop eating and just stop eating altogether. Many people have found incredible success by taking a number of days off from their phone. And if you can do that, and we'll talk about different techniques or methods we can overcome this phone addiction, but if you can do that, then go for it. But in many cases, people simply cannot. They have jobs, they have obligations, they have family members, and they cannot simply ignore their phone or all screens. So we need to find a way to minimize its manipulative effects and overcome what exactly is happening that is limiting our spiritual ability to be of service and to raise the vibration of this planet. The access and convenience that a smartphone gives us makes life easier. It comes at a price. They're carefully designed to be hard to put down. Through its colors, sounds, and vibrations, the technology purposely keeps its users engaged. According to former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris, features like pull to refresh were inspired by slot machines and other casino games. Designers and engineers meticulously developing every aspect of the device to create fanatical users, to create your reality for you, instead of you creating your own. The American Psychiatric Association officially recognizes the condition of phones as a form of addiction. It's a behavioral addiction by many medical professionals and researchers worldwide. According to several studies, over time, the devoted use of smartphones can alter and negatively impact an individual, much like gambling. Phone addiction may lead to sleep deficits, lower concentration, creativity blocks, aggravated ADD, anxiety, reduced cognition, stress, loneliness, insecurity, impaired relationships, poor grades, psychological disorders. Chronic phone use can also cause other physical dysfunctions like GABA, a neurotransmitter in the brain, dysfunction and a loss of gray matter in the brain, which are highly correlated to substance use disorders. Chronic phone overuse is proven to change reward circuits in the brain chemically. One of the primary affected neurotransmitters, according to the article from the Addiction Center on phone addiction, is gamma aminobutyric acid, or GABA. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that produces a calming or euphoric effect. It can even control fear and anxiety. The inhibitor plays a significant role in addiction by rewarding substance use and reinforcing addictive behaviors. Research shows that chronic phone use can increase or decrease GABA production. Disturbances to the GABA system are proven to be a warning sign of addiction. In a study by the Radiological Society of North America, heavy phone use was linked to an upsetting ratio of GABA to other neurotransmitters. When the teen test subjects received cognitive behavioral therapy for the disorder, the brain chemistry reverted to a non-addicted ratio. It decreases gray matter. Gray matter in the brain is connected to the part of the central nervous system responsible for enabling individuals to control movement, memory, and emotions. A recent study scanned participants' brains with a phone addiction and discovered a change in their brain's gray matter. According to the researchers, the physical shape and size of their brains resembled that of drug users. Gray matter volume among people addicted to their phones diminished in critical areas, a condition similarly observed in people with a substance use disorder. There is a fine line between healthy and compulsive mobile use. Depending too heavily on a device can lead to a mobile addiction. A scholarly journal published by the National Library of Medicine reports that 6.3% of the population is addicted to their smartphone. The pattern of abuse is greatest among those under 30, with an average of 16% of adolescents addicted. Think about that. We have something that is addicted 16% of our kids. And it's our own fault. And we didn't know. We had no warning. We had no idea that this would happen. When these cell phones came out, we had no idea that there could be something like phone addiction. There was no background to it. Nobody carried around a computer in their pocket. Nobody had carried around a mobile camera and recording device. It's so unprecedented in our history. There's not even a historical example that we can relate it to. There are a few ways to discern if you have a serious phone addiction. If you're lying about your smartphone use, I'm giving you these are things that I did when I drank alcohol that were signs of my addiction because I lied about drinking alcohol. So if you're lying about smartphone use, if your loved ones are expressing concern, they say to you, you're on your phone too much, or you neglect or trouble completing duties at work, school, or home, more and more time using a phone, you're checking people's profiles repeatedly due to anxiety, accidents or injury due to phone use, working later to complete tasks, weak or non-existent social life, fear of missing out, isolation from loved ones, a feeling of lack of connection. You're angry or irritated if your phone use is interrupted, or you're getting up at night to check your phone, reaching for the phone the moment that you wake up, or the moment that you're alone or bored, or you spend an entire vacation just on your phone because that's how you consider a vacation. Phantom vibrations, you think your phone buzzes and it doesn't because you have it buzzing so often. And the real test is limiting your phone use is difficult. So if you could take 30 minutes and not look at your phone, tell me what happens. The reason I'm doing this episode is that I noticed I was using my phone too much, so that I then did this same test. I said, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm done looking at it. I put it at a part of my desk where I couldn't get to it and was working on other things. Next thing you know, I'm sitting there looking at my phone, crouched down into my phone. I'm like, I don't even remember picking it up. So then I put it across my room so I'd have to get up to get to it. And then I started to work again, and one thing leads to another, and I have that phone, and I felt like I had it for an important reason. I didn't when I evaluated it. So then I put it outside of the room. I found myself going to the bathroom, and the next thing you know, without even thinking about it, I unconsciously grabbed my phone going to the bathroom. Each time, there was a forgetting involved, a forgetting of my previous phone usage, and it accumulated, and you're not sitting and logging in at the end of the day. I use this much phone time. You may not be aware how much you're actually using it. It is essential to remember there is no specific amount of time, frequency, or messages sent that indicates phone addiction. Yet an accumulation of the warning signs I talk about is an indicator there might be an underlying problem. I mean, just now, I had to pause this particular episode and was talking to my wife who was on her phone. She was showing me something. Then I got back to my desk and was on my phone for 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm aware of this, and I feel like that many of you are in the same boat. There's no need to despair. You want to be an active listener, aware of your awareness. What you place your awareness on becomes a reality. So understand the creative aspects of your attention. When you place your attention on something, the more you place your attention on it, the more that your reality starts to reflect what you place your attention on. So it's important to understand the creative elements of interacting with your phone. And in that way, you'll notice that you have more energy because you're giving energy to some things there is no need for you to be giving energy to. There are events happening in the world. There are movements and theories and groups that when you give your energy, you are the victim of vampires. This element of our reality must be carefully thought out. Our use of the phone and the way that we use it as a means of service and the ways that it can distract us. There is a balance in all things, as we learned when we read Lao Tzu and the Tao. There's a balance that we must find. The phone is just like electricity. It can both kill and light your house. It is neutral in its power. It can make you a fortune. It can show you probabilities and statistics and give you immediate information in a way we've never had before. So we must find a way to balance this in the way that it manipulates our attention and the way that we manipulate our attention toward it. We can use it as a force for good. There is no need to despair, but at the beginning, we're going to have to break our addiction to it, much like somebody that eats too much who still has to eat. We have to ration our use of it, properly document the amounts that we're using it. When we understand our general pattern of usage with the phone, we can then extend the way that we use it so that we have control over it. Meditate without the phone. Go into the silence. Enter into nature on a regular basis. For nature is where the power is, and the phone takes us away from that interaction with nature. I have two recent episodes where I've discussed with you the ways that nature is communicating with me and the ways that nature empowers you. There's a whole vast world out there that you are not aware of because you're in your phone. You must transcend your phone so that you have control of your attention and awareness, so that you become the loci of your creative power. The things that we need to be aware of and very sensitive in the future is our tolerance, increasing our use, along with a driving need for new applications. If you have an inability to limit the use, repeated failure to decrease the amount of time spent using the phone, if you're preoccupied, you resort to cell phone usage during uncomfortable moments when you feel uncomfortable and you can't express your feelings. And a big one is a loss of a sense of time. That's what I'm experiencing. Elapsed time becomes irrelevant or unnoticed due to excessive use. You're sacrificing your job or a relationship. You'd rather be on your phone than going on a date. And if you experience withdrawal symptoms, once you give up that phone for 30 minutes, evaluate how long it is until you start to feel withdrawal. And a withdrawal symptom is like anger, tension, irritability, restlessness. You find yourself lashing out with people for no apparent reason. Sometimes that's a sign. You might notice eye strain or neck pain. And of course, there's using your phone while driving. And I've been very fortunate with the times that I've used my phone while driving. There's sleep disturbances, anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, repetitive habits, checking your phone, regularly checking it, going to a certain app repeatedly over and over and over again. Those are signs that there is an imbalance that you need to find balance with. So we need to find ways to overcome these particular symptoms and withdrawals. A very recent study by Ohio State University conducted with 495 participants in studying the ways that phone correlated with psychopathological symptoms, interpersonal sensitivity. You're not able to actually talk to people properly, was identified by looking at the number of hours they use their phone. Oftentimes there was a personal inadequacy and inferiority. They call it nomophobia. If you're deeply addicted, you may want to slowly start to cut off certain applications. Give yourself a mental diet. Try to remain positive with the content that you are exposed to. Try not to fear scroll or doom scroll, where you're scrolling looking for something terrible that's happened. What is happening is that certain groups of people are creating actual traumas with the information that they provide. These traumas are then a means of creating a manipulation. They might traumatize you with some terrible news footage. Oftentimes they'll use kids. It creates a literal trauma that you are almost in a state of shock with the thing that you've seen, and you're exposed to stories and things like that. You see it all the time, and so you have to be aware of the way that they're using the phone and manipulating you. Most of the time, fear-based messaging has some sense of manipulation behind it. If they're telling you to fear those people over there, or they're telling you to fear this group there, then oftentimes that message is not carried with any level of evidence and is designed to create fear within you. If you could look in the vast unseen world around you, for instance, if you walked into a hospital and you could see the entities and spirits, you'd see so many in a hospital, because there are entities, as we have learned from Quo, that feed on fear. It is their food. They are generally around places where there's a lot of fear, and right now they are feasting because they can create a fear-based environment anywhere through the phone. These entities are powerful, and they're taking your fear energy and they're feasting upon you, and it's in their general interest to make you fearful. Of course, there's always things that you can choose to be fearful about, but in general, if you're thinking about the proper way to align yourself mentally in understanding the true aspects of reality creation, you have to understand that your attention is creative. Write that down and be aware of it. Your attention is creative. What you place your attention on creates your reality. So it depends on what application you're using. Do you have a desire to kill time, or to numb yourself by playing some game or doing something irrelevant? In meditation, step back and evaluate the way you're using your attention in these circumstances. I have found the balancing exercise to be a powerful technique at the end of the day in relation to this. The balancing exercise taught by Ra in the Law of One Material is, at the end of the day, you go back through the day and you evaluate the opposite of the emotions that you experienced to create some level of balance. And what I found is a lot of that fear-based emotions, once I really evaluated and dug into the memories of my day in particular, that I found that I was replacing those fearful feelings often, and I became aware of the amount of fear-based messaging I was being exposed to in my environment. Oftentimes we're exposed to this outside of our control. We live in a family that's watching TV or reading the news, or they're telling you, or your dad or your uncle is telling you some bit of information that they heard while addicted to their phone. And that information is designed to manipulate you even if you don't have access to it. So I want you to become aware of the power of language, the structure of the language being used, the elements that induce emotional signatures, the way you react. If there's concern or fear, I want you to step away from that temporarily. I want you to use your phone as an indicator of an affirmation. In order for you to use your phone, you have to say an affirmation. Whatever affirmation that is. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm secure. You can say something as simple as that, so that you can use your phone addiction to your benefit to begin with. And by doing so, you're going to start to be aware how many times you use that affirmation. Every time you pick up your phone, you have to say some particular affirmation. You might say the large sums of money affirmation. Or you might say something as simple as I am love. or I'm broadcasting love. Say something. Give yourself some exercise or task that you have to do when you pick up your phone. Do you find yourself rushing through that affirmation? Just try it. The thing I'm wanting you to be aware of that has helped me as I start to evaluate my phone usage is when you're using your phone. Because right now there's time slips and there is a certain level of programming where you are literally forgetting how often you are using your phone. One of the techniques I love to use when I have my sleep meditations is for you to go through your day and evaluate what happened in your day. Now, as I started to do this technique myself in sleep meditations, I found I was skipping over my phone usage as if it wasn't a part of the day that I lived. And if you were to look back at the end of your life, are you going to remember times when you were just looking at your phone? Are those moments going to be the ones that really stand out, that you remember when your life flashes before your eyes? Or are you simply going to forget all that time you were using your phone? Does that tell you how important the phone is in your life? There are some proven techniques that people have used. Cognitive behavioral therapy, evaluating your behavior, group therapy, where people just talk about it, get together for 20 minutes, go online on Zoom. People that feel like their phones are becoming addictive to them, that it's imbalancing their life, get together and talk about it on Zoom with your desktop, put your phone away. Get support where other people can say, hey, this is what worked for me. Talk to other people. Motivational interviewing. You can interview people that have overcome these things. Be around people that are not always on their phone. Try to give yourself time away from your phone on a regular basis. Go camping. Ride in your car. And you can't use your phone. Go for a long drive. Go to the movie. You know, I was alerted to this recently when I had the wonderful opportunity on our meditation Saturday, which we have every Saturday, most of the time at 2 p.m. And I asked my son, for my birthday, would you give me a birthday present? Would you meditate with me? So we sat down, we did a meditation, and I could tell he was lit up. The energy was flowing in him, and I could see his aura. It was hopeful and bright and wonderful. And he said, you know, usually I'm in my phone. And he was coming to an awareness of not being on his phone just from a short 24-minute meditation. And that's when I started to evaluate my own phone usage. And what is so unusual about this is that we are not aware of the addiction that we have. In many cases, people aren't even aware of it. They accept it. It's a part of their lives. You can never leave your house without your phone. You'll always have your phone, right? Just don't let your phone addiction win. They're an excellent resource, but they can be potentially dangerous, especially with children and young adults, as I've learned with my own kids. Yes, their phones have been taken away. Every level of phone usage and ways of working with the phone has been discussed and talked about with my kids. And I'm experiencing this as a parent of this new phenomenon, like many others that didn't even deal with phone usage when they were kids, and they have nothing to fall back on to relate to because it wasn't around when I was a kid. Science continues to link health problems to this. If you're having health problems, evaluate whether it's your phone usage that is causing it. If you're stressing from your phone usage, but give yourself some phone detox. If you have a loved one who's having difficulty with it, talk to them. Give them a reason to walk outside, to do something that they want to do. Everybody's going to be a little bit different with this. And there's many different solutions. But the divine within me flows within me, is what I'm always saying. The divine infinite intelligence knows all ways. And I call upon infinite intelligence in this moment to rebalance the chemistry of my brain, to rebalance the patterns of my life, to rebalance my consciousness and intention, to aim my attention and consciousness towards the one infinite creator, to see the infinite creator in all things, to see the love in all things, to let go of habits and addictions that work against my spiritual evolution. I am one with all things. I understand all things, and in this moment I have a powerful, infinite knowing of how to overcome any addiction that comes into my life. I walk with balance in all things, towards love and service. In Jesus' name I pray. I am consciousness and awareness. I am the willpower and choice of my own attention. So go out into the day, enjoy your day, smell the roses and hear that beautiful singing of the birds outside. Become aware of what's happening in your environment and notice the things that you didn't notice before. Transcend your phone addiction. I'm sending all my love and all my light to everyone listening. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.